the two topics for tonight are going to be the property improvement contest, which James is the chairman and really runs autonomously from me. We just give him money and he runs it. So he's going to talk about it. And then I'll get into opening houses for the fall, transitioning from summer to fall, and some of the best practices for doing that and things that you need to make a note of so that they get done going into the fall semester. So I'm going to let James introduce himself, tell you a little bit about his background and who he is, his Triangle experience, what he does. And I would also advocate anyone that ever wants to call up someone who's not a paid person, a staffer, call someone who's an alumni volunteer. James has been with us the longest. I've known James since he was an undergrad. He's a fantastic guy. He's a great advocate for TBHC, and he knows how everything functions because he has helped us build some of the systems we use. And he has a great superintendent. They have a fantastic relationship. So James is definitely a resource that we rely on, and I highly recommend, and I'm very proud of his engagement with TBHC. And he's just a fantastic, not just Triangle and a brother, but a man. He's just a really good guy. So if you ever need you ever want to talk to someone who's outside the national office but is engaged with the national office at a pretty high level, James is a great guy to talk to. So I'll let James introduce himself and then go right into the property improvement contest. James?
Well, thanks for that very flattering introduction, Mike. So yeah, as Mike said, my name is James Collar. I am the current chairman of the property improvement contest for TBHC. I'm a Michigan 2013 initiate and now serve as the alumni board president for the Michigan chapter. We've been engaged with TBHC we were just trying to figure this out, maybe 6 or 7 years now, as TBHC manages our property for us. But we still remain the property owners. And we're actually engaged with TBHC and TEF right now in the middle of a capital campaign and multi-million-dollar renovation of the chapter house. So that's a little bit about my chapter engagement. What I'm really here for is talk about the property improvement contest, the PIC, that TBHC puts on every year. So the TBHC board is extremely generous with this. They give $10,000 annually of TBHC money available for grants for chapters to do property improvements. The way that we administer this program is first, chapter has to have a good idea, and it does not limit chapters to those with chapter houses. Any chapter, house or not, can apply for the grant. If you don't have a chapter house, you can do community projects. Work with your local area to do a community garden, do work within the city. It doesn't have to be strictly towards your chapter house if you do not have a house. But obviously, we definitely encourage our chapters who are housed to participate. I think just about every chapter in Triangle does some sort of housing improvement year after year, whether it be something as simple as repainting to something more intense, such as building new furniture or doing repairs to rooms. That's really the intent of this program, is to incentivize our chapters to do improvements to their property that they're going to do themselves. So for each grant application that we receive, we score it in several criteria. The first criteria is alumni participation. We want our chapters to be engaged with the alumni boards that they work with. So we award points for engaging alumni. The maximum amount of points will be if you engage at least 4 alumni in the project in some way, shape, or form. The second criteria is that we want chapter members to be involved. Now, we realize that not every member of the chapter is going to be involved. We want a lot of participation. So for the maximum points for that category, we look at, is at least 90% of your chapter being involved in this? The third thing is we want our members to take hands-on roles in the projects. So we want you to do all the work yourself. Now, we realize that not all the time that's realistic, but maximum points are awarded for no third parties completing the work. The next criteria is all about aesthetics. So we look at, what is the project appearance? And we look at, this is a very subjective one, but does it look good? Next, we encourage improvement that's going to impact most people. So we award points for things that are going to improve areas of the chapter house that are significantly used. So for example, a common room improvement, so improving, say, your living room, will earn more points than improving a bedroom. And I want to point out here too that this is not meant to compete with your CEF funding. So while CEF funding can be used to improve your educational spaces, the PSE funding can be used to improve any space in your chapter house. So it's not limited to educational spaces. Next, we encourage our chapters to improve safety and well-being. So if your chapter project might have a positive impact on life safety or insurance rates, you're going to get some more points there. Beyond that, we strive to make the world a better place. So points are awarded for improvements that will have a greater impact on the community beyond just the chapter. So for example, if you're doing an exterior project like a community garden, that's going to have a lot more points than if you're doing something, say, a chapter common area or a chapter social space. And last but not least, we want you to write a good proposal. So we evaluate all of your proposals on their overall organization and wow factor. Again, that one's pretty subjective. So, of the 8 criteria, some of them are really objective. It's looking at the raw numbers of the project, while others are more subjective based on our committee. And we have a 4-member committee across 4 different chapters. We each go through and score your chapter's proposal independently, and then we average our 4 scores for your final amount. Basically, we take your overall score out of the maximum possible, and we multiply that by $1,000. So the average chapter award is usually in the $500 to $600 range, and that money goes towards your national account. So once the project's done, you basically send us a picture and say, "Yep, we did this," and we give your national account a credit for, if it's $550, you get $550 credit there, and that can go towards paying down your next round of national active fees, whenever your next bill is to the national organization. This way, you don't have to worry about getting a check in the mail from TBHC. You're going to owe the national headquarters anyway at some point in the next 6 months. So this is a way that we really cut down on the bookkeeping and simplifies it for everyone. There's a wide variety of projects that can be done here. In the last year, we've had projects that have ranged from weight room improvements, especially during COVID when campus gyms closed down. Purdue spent a good amount of money on building a weight room in their house. Purdue does their annual fall cleanup too, so we fund that pretty much every year. They've done things like painting and redoing shower rooms, and they really get high scores because not only is a lot of their chapter involved, but a lot of their alumni are involved as well. They're doing all the work themselves. Toledo did a great, beautiful project this year, making some epoxy tables. Wisconsin has gone through and completely redone a bedroom. They had some issues with some mold and beehive infestation actually in the bedroom. I went through and remediated that. So, a wide range of projects. Some projects that we haven't funded have really been projects that were over and above what the gold contest is. So we've had some applications for example, one chapter asked us for $35,000 to replace all the windows in their house by a third party. That's not what this property improvement contest is about. It makes no sense for us to give you $500 on a $35,000 project, and also you're not doing any of the work. In that case, they were just asking for money to go hand to a contractor. That's not what this contest is about. And there are other ways to work with TBHC to try to get funding for projects like that. But this is not the goal of that. Most years we only have about 8 or 9 applications. So that means every single chapter that has applied gets money. And at the end of the year, we take the remaining money and award additional funds to the best projects of the year. So for example, Iowa State had a last minute proposal that was a lot of work. They were repainting, it sounded like most of their house. It actually ended up being the best project of the year. So they were awarded an additional $1,500 at convention, which again is just going back to their pool. So there's lots of money to be handed out here. Very few chapters actually apply to it. The application is really simple. It's a quick Google form, basically just asking about the criteria I just mentioned. How many actors are participating, how many alumni, what's the project, what's the budget, and then it asks you to upload a simple PDF proposal. The proposals do not have to be very long, very detailed. All we're really looking for is, do you have a plan? Do you know who's going to be working on it? Do you know when it's going to happen? Do you know what materials you need to buy? We want to make sure that you're organized with it and that the project's actually going to happen. So, outside of that, I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. But the improvement contest application is on the national website. If you go under actives, national info, there's a link to the property improvement contest. Or you can just go to triangle.org/actives/property-improvement-contest. And the application is at the bottom of that webpage. Otherwise, feel free to email pick@trianglebhc.org. That goes to myself as well as the rest of the committee members, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. With that, I'm just happy to open it up for any questions that you guys have about the property improvement contest.
Yeah, I've got one. So the chapter will submit a proposal and they fill out your Google form saying how many alumni, how many members are going to be involved and all that. At the end, if it turns out, hey, we thought we were going to have 2 alumni show up to help with this, but we actually had 5 guys that showed up, and like we had, 90% of the chapter that showed up. Is there an opportunity to kind of let you know that there were more people involved than they thought were going to be involved? If they don't maybe know exactly how many people are going to have hands on deck helping out whatever day they choose to do it?
Not really, to be honest. Once we process the application, we try to get it kicked out within 30 days. And then that's pretty much the end of it. And honestly, most chapters don't even reach back out to send us pictures of the project afterwards, which we request. So, the short answer is no, but we also will allow you to submit an application immediately after the event as well. And we definitely encourage you to submit your application before the event. But if you submit it after, you can give us exact numbers then too.
Okay, so the funding is administered on application, like with the proposal, not on completion of the project?
Correct, yeah.
I would add that if you go to the step of actually turning in the post-project report with lots of pictures, that's the thing that could weigh in on the awards at the end of the year, which is more money.
Yeah.
So you could turn in things saying, hey, we thought we were going to have 3 and 12 showed up, and look at all these pictures. And, the whole point is, yes, you get a little money up front, but the award on the back end can be 3 or 4 times the amount of money you got for the project.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just was confused that the money was given even if there was no proof of the work actually getting accomplished, because I know guys around here make plans all the time and then they end up getting pushed back and never happen. So
there is a caveat that if we do find out that the work was not completed, we can take back the money. Also,
Good.
If the chapter, lies on the application, again, we are required that, we will claw back all the money. So that is, a requirement that, chapters are truthful in their applications and work does get done.
So what initially was a credit on your account at Nationals would become a debit.
Cool.
I do have another question. So I'm going to be stepping into the house manager role at Iowa State. So with that, how often does this contest run? Is it each semester, or is it just during a year period, or kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, so we administer the program on a fiscal year basis. So basically July 1 through June 30th. So the program really ends at convention each year, or Scobie Leadership School. That's when we hand out the end of year awards. So, you can submit an application starting right now for work that you're going to be doing in August or September. And you can submit all the way through the start of the summer. So Ethan, for example, Ben submitted an application right at the start of June that we processed literally the last possible week before convention this year. That enabled you guys to actually win the Best Project Award. So it's a rolling basis. There's no application deadlines. Like I said, as soon as the application is received, I get an email notification, and we try to process it within 30 days. The only time it really goes longer is around the holidays. So a lot of chapters have tried to apply like right at Christmas throughout the years, and that tends to be a slower time for the committee to try to get together and process awards, given that it's the holidays.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for James about the contest? Or any questions at all for James? All right, thanks, man.
Thank you, Mike.
So the only other thing I was going to talk about tonight was the transition basically from summer to fall and opening your house for the fall. So if you were open all summer, then you might need to make sure you take some time to do some cleaning in the short period of turnaround you have. If you're closed all summer, it's a little easier to get to it. But if you are open all summer, you have to almost intentionally set aside a week where you're going to kind of have cleaning move through the house in a way that you can get people out of your way if they're still there, or especially the kitchen and the bathrooms, and you want to make sure all your plumbing is working. You know, sometimes toilets that are 30 years old, if they aren't flushed all summer long, you come back to flush them and the seals have dried out and all of a sudden you got a leak or they overflow, or so you definitely want to be going around and checking your plumbing. You'd much rather deal with something in the 2 weeks before you open versus people are moving in, parents are there moving their kids in, and you got overflowing toilets. You don't want that. So really go around and test your systems, make sure things are in working order. Just make sure the place is ready to open, like any business. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. So just make sure the place is ready to go. That's number one. Is everything functioning? Are there any pending inspections that for some reason didn't get done? Fire extinguishers, fire alarm system, things like that all of a sudden got missed or something, and you need to make sure that you get those done so you don't have the day of move-in and the fire department shows up and closes the building because you are missing an inspection or a certification from the health department, or I mean, if you have a kitchen, you might have to have some sort of kitchen inspection. You know, are you squared away with all the administrations, municipalities, certification boards, inspection boards? Is everything ready to go? You know, and that's one of the things, especially for Ethan, as you transition in, you want to make sure you get from the previous guy. What are the inspections that happened over the course of the year I need to be aware of? Because the thing that really stinks is when you get almost like a surprise inspection, you get short notice and you fail, and then they don't lock the door, but then you got to have another. And in places like the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, they charge an arm and a leg and another arm, and they want your firstborn child for those inspections. I mean, it's incredibly expensive, and re-inspections aren't a whole lot cheaper. So you want to make sure that you're kind of on top of that stuff. Obviously, cleaning the house, whether you're transitioning from summer to fall or just opening for fall, give the house a good cleaning. The kitchen, bathrooms, and I talked about inspections. Something else, if you're not already doing this, you want to implement, you still have time to throw something together, is implement a check-in, check-out process. And again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Residence halls have been doing this perfectly for decades. If you can just go and get one of their forms even, or email me, I can send you some. The forms that Michigan uses that's attached to their lease is a fantastic paper form. They have the check-in form and then they have the check-out form. And basically you have them fill those out. So you know what, if any damages, the kid signs off. At the same time, you can do the other item on here is key control. Key control is huge. Residence halls, again, have perfected it. You have to sign out a key. It's got a number on it. And then in the spring, when they move out, or if they move out mid-year, or move out really anytime, you bring that form back out. You go through the inventory, make sure that when they've moved out of the room and they've swept the room out, it's basically generally clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least cleaned all their stuff out and swept, and the furniture sort of arranged the way it was when they moved in. And you want to check against that form and see if any damage are owed, because if you're going to issue a security deposit, you don't want to do that and then find out there's $200 worth of damage that you have to repair, and then it comes out of your budget because you've already issued the security deposit refund. So room check-in, check-out forms, and again, your school, residence, life has forms that are, I can't imagine they wouldn't share with you, and they're great. Or again, you contact me or James. Again, the one on James's lease is great. It's a great, and they're all going to have to be a little bit tailored for your house because everybody's house is a little bit different. But it's a great place to start. You don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. And then again, key control. Another important best practice is at the beginning of each academic term, you should hold a whole membership. not just the guys that live in, but the whole chapter meeting, membership, safety meeting. You know, what do you do in case of a fire? What do you do in case of a flood, tornado? What are, you know, where are the numbers located to call for emergency services? Where's the rally point? If there's a fire in the house, outside the house at a safe distance, say 150 to 100 yards, is there a tree or a bench or somewhere you can rally? And who grabs the folder off the shelf that's got the current roster, everybody's cell phone number, their parents' name, and their parents' cell phone number, contact information, so that when there's a fire or some reason that you're all out of the house, can we go through, hey, where's John Smith? Where's, you know, Tristan Hull? Where we need to account for these people, so you don't know, because the fire department's going to ask you when they show up. They're going to go, is there anybody in the house? And you need to say, here are the 4 people we have not yet accounted for, and here's their room numbers, so they can go specifically to those places first and look for those people just in case. So a rally point. We have a document we send out every year. You've probably seen it. It comes out 2 or 3, couple times a year, that has all the links to the safety meeting, and what we basically have a sample agenda for the safety meeting. You want to talk about COVID now? That's something we probably we have some stuff in there about viruses and cleaning, but we probably need to update it with some COVID specific stuff. You know, how are you going to address if someone gets sick during COVID? Every one of our properties, and James can tell you, because there's, once again, they did a great job. Theirs became the model for all of Triangle. But what do you do if you have someone who's infected? How do you do protocol? What is your protocol for isolating that person, making sure you get their laundry done and get them food and their trash, but they don't leave the room? So things like that are things you want to make sure you have in place, written policies that you can share with the chapter, and be able to answer questions about, you know, if the school asks for something, it's done. You just send it to them. This is what we do if this happens. So and you should do that at the beginning of fall, the beginning of spring, and the beginning of summer term if you have people on campus or people living in the house. And it shouldn't just be people living in, it should be all members, because you will have people that stay overnight for whatever reason, or come over and hang out, and in the middle of the night there's an issue, you know, tornado, fire, flood, whatever. And then one of the other things I always recommend is, I call it a bro event, brotherhood event. I think it's great to start the year in the house with a brotherhood event and share what I call summer stories. It's not a traditional brotherhood event. It's more like a check-in, catch up. You can pair it with the safety meeting. You can pair it with the first chapter. But basically, because it's very hard to do a really good brotherhood event in chapter. You got other things to do. It's the beginning of the year. It's busy. We're talking about social events and intramurals and all things we got to get done. Homecomings. Oh my God, homecoming's only 3 weeks, 6 weeks away. You know, so you really need to set it apart, but have a reconnection event. You know, a way to check in with each other. Hey, tell us about your summer. What was your highlight? What was your highlight? Or what was your high? What was your low? You know, like Sunday morning with Willie guys. What was your high? What was your low? Did anything exciting happen? Any announcements? You know, who's here? Did anybody not show up? Anybody we thought was coming back that didn't show up? Stuff like that. So I highly recommend an event that is a get-together summer stories event, brotherhood event at the beginning of the semester. That's about all I had on my agenda for tonight. I'll open it for questions for myself or really James. He's always happy to answer questions.